I'm just like, say it louder for the people in the back.
Well, honestly, our magazine wouldn't exist if all of us didn't love what we were doing. Because
I know, because I email you guys when I'm working at like 2 a.m. and someone replies and I'm like, okay, so we're all dying. It's fine.
There are days I like sit down for an hour where I'm like, okay, I need to respond to all of these emails right now, because if I don't, like, we're gonna have an issue. Hello and welcome to the Krazecast, the podcast run by the fans for the fans that brings you close to the action. My name is Roxy, and today I'm joined by my fellow host, Jay.
Hello, long time no see. To keep up with all of our content, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Krazemag, and YouTube The Kraze. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please don't forget, before we begin, to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Make sure you tune into our channel and hit that bell for notifications for whenever we upload new videos. So today, it's been a while. It has been a while since we've really sat down and recorded, but we wanted to bring back another episode featuring another guest, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Brittany Press. We're going to let her introduce herself more, but if you're familiar with artists such as Omega X, AB6, Saran, chances are that at least in the US PR realm, you've heard of Brittany. So welcome to the Krazecast, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate giving the opportunity to chat with all of you. Like you said, I am in the publicity sphere, especially in the US media. I am the director of PR and operations at Helix Publicity, and I get to work with a lot of amazing Kpop artists.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
My
I know
pleasure.
we've been working this out for a couple of weeks now, and so we're finally glad to sit down and talk to you. So we're going to try to keep it casual, talk K-pop, talk PR. We want us to be a free flowing conversation. So welcome. And it's a pleasure to finally meet you, at least in this round.
I know. I feel like I've been emailing with you guys for like years at this point, and I've just never like sat down and like even done a call like this, which is kind of sad now that I think about it.
It's okay. It's happening now. So
Yes.
Again, we're so thankful to even just sit down with you and get to talk to you. So Roxy, if you want to get it started, go ahead.
Sure. So how did you get started in PR, and what made you want to choose this path?
Well, my career, as I've said in a lot of places at this point, has been a very weird and interesting one. I actually, when I was coming out of college, wasn't supposed to go to PR. I should have become a lawyer if I would have done what I was going to school and everything for. But while I was in college, I was working at a law firm. And after I was in college, I was working in a law firm, and I was absolutely miserable. And I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And then I wanted to enter book publishing because I was really interested in book publishing. I was a big reader, and I knew I wanted to be in something in publicity or in marketing. But because I didn't do anything I was supposed to, because I went to the law path originally, I had to kind of create it from the ground up. So I became a book blogger, making myself a book influencer, got to interview a lot of great artists, did my own, I guess it's called like a Twitter chat now. It's like where I arrange like the authors can interact with fans. And then through that, I got my first internship into book publishing, is in publicity marketing. Worked my way up to be a full-time person in publishing, then realized it was too slow. To put a book out sometimes takes years. So it was just too much of a slow environment. But in getting into K-pop, I've been a K-pop fan for over 20 years, but I didn't realize there was a K-pop job essentially, because there wasn't when I was first starting out as a K-pop fan. So it just never seemed like a career path. And then, K-pop kind of came up now and again in our media when groups were traveling here. They would, do some of, their promo here, but it was never really big. And then, of course, as we all know, BTS kind of changed that, and opportunities started opening up. And then I got my first K-pop job at a Korean startup app. I lived in Korea for a couple of months, worked there. But that was really more on like the social media marketing side. And I just knew at that point I wanted to be in PR. So then I jumped over to a PR agency and then eventually ended up here working in PR, specifically in K-pop.
That is such a big turnaround for you.
Yeah, it's not linear in any means.
I do think though, it's a good segue, especially for people that are like really young, that like just because you decide to study something, it doesn't mean like it's going to be your career. You can always like switch things up.
That was really hard for me because I changed my career like 3 different times at that point, and I was like, can I still change my career at this point? And yes, you can. It takes a lot more, even more hard work, because I basically started 3 different careers. But if you're willing to put in the work and you know your stuff, it's definitely possible.
Yeah. So advice for all the young ones listening out there, if you don't feel like you're set on something, you're never going to really be in one place forever,
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool that you got into book publishing like really quickly. Like what kind of was it nonfiction?
It was YA. So like
okay.
Yeah, so I worked in YA, so very fandom based like stuff. I did work with like other titles. Like I had an internship where I was working nonfiction, which made me absolutely miserable. And then I worked at one place where it was like really expensive, like coffee table books, like, like the books that cost like $200 that are just meant to sit on your coffee table. But YA was my favorite.
I was like, that sounds cool. It's just like being a book nerd. I was like, oh, I wonder what titles she got to work with.
Yeah. So many titles. I can't even keep up with them because a lot of them I did end up working with when I was a book influencer. So
right.
when that happens, you get like free books to review and so on. So I have a bunch of free books. And then in actual book publishing, at least per quarter, I probably only worked like somewhere between like 2 to 10 books per quarter, depending on like what was the release schedule of that and how big the team was.
So you kind of answered somewhat ish my next question for you in this case but you mentioned that you've been a fan of K-pop for like 20 years. Like how did that even come to be? Like how did you get started in that? And it's just like kind of want to ask you like, because you've been a fan for so long, like seeing the progression of K-pop throughout the years,
Yeah. Well, the first part is how. So when I was little and still to this day, I was a big anime fan. And BoA did an OST for an anime I was watching. So then I was like, who's BoA? And so I went down the rabbit hole of who's BoA. I started liking her music. And then she did a showcase for TVXQ for their debut, which they were probably my first love back then, and then I just kind of gone from there. In terms of watching K-pop changed so much in the last few years, and it's not just last few years, over time. I remember trying to consume K-pop when I was in middle school. It was really difficult. There was no streaming platform. You were hoping that someone would put up the variety show in like 5 parts on YouTube. There were like forums where you could like watch performances or like listen to the music. It was a lot. And now it's just like, well, I just have to go on YouTube and, search, and there it all is.
Yeah, we've definitely, at least amongst me and Roxy, like I have been a fan a little bit longer, so I definitely feel for that. And when it was on LiveJournal and MySpace.
Oh my God, LiveJournal. I remember LiveJournal.
I was just like, I won't be surprised if like in the past, like maybe possibly me and Brittany have crossed paths at one point,
it's so possible
because it was small, right?
It was very, very niche, and it was kind of like, I'm sure in some circles it's still the same, but it was in like, at least where I grew up in regular society, it was weird to be in K-pop. I know some days in some places it still is, but it's more common now. Whereas back then it was kind of like a hush, hush, do you like K-pop? Me too. And then you would just like never tell anyone else around you because you would get bullied.
Right.
Dude, I was even bullied in my 20s, like in 2015. My boss would bully me about it. I was like, shut your mouth, you anime watcher. You can't talk shit.
Okay, that's even worse because I feel like an anime watcher or an anime fan should understand like the pain of like having to like talk about something that people just don't seem like something to be into. Like we can watch all the seasons of Game of Thrones, but you know, God forbid we watch something animated or something in a totally different language.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, oh man, brings back days of what when we were used to be like that. It's like, man, now all you kids have it so much more easier now because it's mainstream.
Yeah, but I'm relieved. Like, I'll be honest, I went through a phase where I was like really bitter about how easy it was to get to, but also I was like, but now I don't have to dig. Now it's just one search away and I'll find it. And I'm so glad, and I hope it, you know, continues. One of my biggest fears in this industry, and it's actually one of the things Helix is trying really like hard to prevent, and is that this will be a fad, because there's a lot of people at the top of the music industry who would love for this to be a fad and for this to go away. And you know, we've come so far. It would be so depressing if we went backwards. But there's just as many people who want to keep it around. There's just as many people who don't want to keep it around. So we did
touch on that when we spoke with NYC K-pop queens. It does seem like there is a whole host of people in Hollywood that really want this to go away as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's not just Hollywood. It's, you know, it's a lot of people at the top, a lot of like old school music people, especially like in top of radio and stuff like that, who just, you know, they think of it as kind of like, if you think of like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and stuff like that, like One Direction, it eventually went away and it wasn't the phase anymore. So they just kind of think of K-pop like that. But K-pop is more than just like, oh, this is the time of the boy bands, time of the girl groups. It's so much more. And even in talking about K-pop, when I had to talk about it, I had to talk about K-pop as like the blanket term, even for artists who are like hip hop artists or rap artists because they're Korean. But that's, unless, you know, the top of the industry can put it under a blanket, they don't listen. So I can bring a ballad singer and then they're like, oh, so it's K-pop. I was like, well, no, but I guess we're gonna call it that. It's not too dissimilar how we have pop music and that kind of encompasses, you know, everything, but it's very frustrating.
Yeah, it kind of goes into the realm of like, if we talk about it, you know, Latin music, you know, there's only like one Latin, you know, category, but it's just like, no, but they're in different facets of music too. But
it's really frustrating. I hate that any music in other languages are put in like a genre like Latin, K-pop. Like it's limiting, and it's limiting by design, which is really upsetting.
Yeah. I'm sure I could rant all day about how messed up industry the media industries are. It is
me every single day.
We just like need to overthrow all of them. Like the old people need to get out. It's like presidencies. We don't want old people running anything. Like, it's too much.
Well, more so than running people out, it's just like we have to learn how to navigate it to make it make sense for some people who are resistant. Like to this day, even my mom, who's, you know, used to me being in anime, to this day she's like, can't you like anything like she'll say normal, and I was like, but then I'll be posting about my clients on my Insta, she's like, I like him. I was like, yeah, isn't he great, or isn't she wonderful? And she was like, well, I wish it was more like this. I was like, there's thousands of artists, Mom. And it's just, that's kind of how it's like dealing with people at the top. It's for some reason they can't get past this bubble, and I don't know like what made them create this bubble. And I feel like they would just enjoy it more if they would just stop putting a limit on it, because, you know, but they want to put a limit on it because they want to belittle it. And I go into this rant all the time about like, if it's something where the fan base is majority female, then it's just like, oh, it's, you know, it's for young girls. And it's like, it's really not. I know fans who are 12, I know fans who are 50. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's just like, we're technically recording on a day where it is very momentous for music today. And so it's
could or could not be. Either way, there will be a riot.
Yes.
So.
Well, there seems to be a riot about almost everything. These days.
Very true.
I just think it's gonna be one of those controversial nights again, you know. I think and it ranges towards all the categories, you know. So it's not limiting to specifically K-pop because we know a certain group is there performing today. But it's just like it comes down to like, well, this music industry does not like change. They don't like new. And so it's hard, and I totally see the frustration there. And it's just, you're like, we all are fans of K-pop, and we want to see it acknowledged for what it is, and that it's not this little thing. It's bigger than that. And then it kind of expands into other genres of music, you know, like you were mentioning, Brittany, like you were into anime. J-pop is very much a thing. J-rock is a thing, and it's just like they sell out so fast, and yet bubbled.
No, it's frustrating. So we at Helix, we also work with Japanese artists. I want to work with more Japanese artists, but the problem is because it's so limiting that unless someone's like the top of that industry and touring here, ARMY doesn't care like at all. Like they could be selling out thousands to millions, and they don't care. And you know, we want to, you know, help many different Asian artists, not just in K-pop, not just Japanese artists. I've worked with many Asian artists from around the world, and it's so frustrating how hard it is to break them. Even with Japanese artists, I've tried working with more, but the problem is they know that they are not well received here. So like, they're like, why do we do this? Like, why should we try it? We're not wanted there. And it's really sad because they're so talented, and there's so much talent from around the world. And you know, there's conversations about how like, well, we can't like listen to everything. I was like, yes, we can. It's the digital age. It's easier to listen to everything now. So why are we doing this?
Big frustrations, and you know, we can only hope for change, you know. So I totally get it. I can't even imagine what it is working in PR, and then you're like, I want you to grow. You know,
there's so many frustrations with that, but like there's frustrations in like working with the Korean agencies. There's frustration with working with people in the media. I always joke that publicists essentially were everybody's punching bag, because someone is always angry at you about something, and you just kind of have to like roll with the punches and like kind of not necessarily roll it off your shoulders because we're people, but like do the best you can do in any of those circumstances.
And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Brittany, you're doing a great job. What you guys are doing at Helix, you guys are doing such good things. And so
thank you.
Like, you know, we like, full transparency out there who are listening to the Krazecast, we have worked together in the past. This is not anything new. It's just like, so we get to see the hard work of each other, you know. So you know, it's just like, if you are not looking out for Helix right now, like, dude, come on. Whoever's listening and watching, come on.
Thank you. That was so sweet. I really appreciate it. Yeah. I love the team at Helix. We all work really, really, really hard. I was telling someone the other day that like, this is not a job where it's 9 to 5. You're kind of always on. Like if I get breaks, it's Friday night into Saturday. After that, it's work.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how much work like doing K-pop stuff is, because you get showcases that are at like 4 p.m. Korean time. That's 3 a.m. in East Coast. And like all of us, I feel like it's the media section is still a niche. So we're all kind of like trying to support each other in this realm, because we're all up against like the general like media. And it's hard. It's hard for all of us to like get anywhere.
It's super hard. And, you know, going back to the time zone thing, I've had press days where I've started listening into like the interviews I've set up with different clients at 1 a.m. and ending at 7 a.m. and then having to, you know, do my regular work hours starting at 9 a.m. Because it's difficult. Some people have asked me, would it be easier if I was in Korea? Not really, because we work with US media, and US media, you know, they work 9 to 6, let's just say. And then Korea, like that's basically as soon as the US workday is over, their day is just starting. So you kind of have to like pick and choose what is worth it to you and like what work needs to be done in that moment. And to be honest, the more clients you have, the more work you just have. And for me personally, I feel less anxious even if I'm staying up working later, because my job lets me put boundaries, but I don't want to put boundaries necessarily because I want everyone to do super well. And this music industry specifically, it's all about the grind. Like it's just built that you have in this way that you have no other choice. If you're like passive and you try to do 9 to 5, 9 to 6, it's just not going to get anywhere unless you are lucky to work with an already established superstar.
That does actually kind of lead into our third question. So like, can you tell us more about like the day-to-day at Helix, or like some behind the scenes moments? Just because I feel like it's a thing that like people don't fully understand, you know, all the work that goes into it.
It's really hard. Describing a day-to-day, I mean, it changes every day depending on what our clients are doing. So I oversee all the employees here at Helix. So the day starts out with I'm checking in with all of our employees, like how their parts of the campaigns are going, because I'm on every single campaign, but then there's other publicists below me who are also working on the same campaigns, because we believe in trying to, pursue every angle. And like in PR, and it's not just in K-pop, you're always trying to think of what other thing can you talk about to make this interesting to the journalist, the reporter, the blogger, to get them right about your artist versus another artist. So the beginning of the day always starts with I'm checking in with everybody, and also I'm checking in on the millions of text messages I've received from my clients that I missed while I was sleeping. But then it goes into what needs to be done for the day. So maybe that day I'm pitching people for a new release that's coming out. Maybe I'm spending time networking with reporters and journalists who I haven't worked with yet, or I have worked with, but like I want to establish a better relationship, because here at Helix, we don't want to send hundreds of blast emails and not know what the other person on the other end wants. We hate clogging up emails. I mean, I hate writing millions of emails. So if I can write a little bit less, so there's a selfish part of this too. But like, it works so much better if the person I'm emailing on the other end actually wants what I'm sending them versus I'm just sending it out into the void and hoping something happens. And then there are days where, let's say my client released something. So are they doing a showcase? Am I watching this showcase? Am I sitting in on all their interviews? It just changes based on whatever needs to be done and what our clients are doing. And it also depends on the type of campaigns we have. Some of our clients, they don't want to do interviews. They just want their music sent out for features, reviews, roundups. And other ones, basically want us to like be with them through every little thing they're doing, down to, what they're posting on social media this week. So it changes depending on what our clients need and what campaigns we're working at that time.
I kind of want to segue a little bit off of that, similar to that topic of, because you're doing so much, and Roxy knows I'm the big mental health wellness nut in the team. So it's just like, it sounds like there is a lot, and definitely recognize it. So how do you yourself, take time for yourself to practice self-care, avoid burnout, and just pushing through all that you have to do, because I think what people don't realize is because we're in a special space of being in K-pop and we are in different time zones, it's hard to put things down.
Oh, 10,000%.
And so it's just like, for those who are listening and, this may be a possible, interest of career for you, how do you take care of yourself, your team, on that realm of, working such a high-paced, high-energy kind of field?
It's really difficult, and I would be lying if I said there weren't a few times where I burned out, because it even happened in the last week. I burned out. By the end of the week, I've just found myself staring at my computer and doing nothing, because like I could not read another word and I was so beyond tired. And the fact of the matter is, when you have the free time, take the free time. Like I said, my free time is Friday night and all of Saturday, mainly because my Friday night is my client's Saturday morning. So they are not contacting me or doing anything. Even if they're working, they're not like working in a sense like they're contacting me about it. And then Saturday is, their Sunday. So I completely shut off. Like if anyone sees me on social media, like I really don't post anything. I completely disconnect as much as I can when I have the free time to, because it's so important, especially since there's so little of that free time. What's harder about my position, I guess, is because I'm, kind of in charge of everyone who works here. I really care to make sure like my employees don't burn out. So like I will take on more so they can end work at a normal time, which obviously is not great for me, but sometimes it's better that way. I'd rather the people who, work for me have more of the boundary. But again, this industry is all about the grind, and sometimes you can't avoid it. So anytime I work with, an intern or assistant or anyone who's talking about this, you have to love this. You have to deal with the hours, to deal with the stress. The highs of this have to make up for the lows of this for you. And that's the best way, besides like taking the time when you have it, is like you have to love this. Otherwise it's going to be too hard on you. It's a really hard industry to be in. So you have to love it in order to survive it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's the thing for younger people to know. It's like, even if you love it, you're still going to get burnt out. Like it's just being alive is going to take a toll on you at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So. And
like the fun stuff, like I get a lot of questions like, oh, but you get to listen to the music early and you get to see this early. And it's like that kind of stuff is like 2% of everything else that needs to get done to get to that point. So yeah, I get to listen to, music early. I get to go to shows and things like that. But to get to that, there's so many hours of other work that most people would consider tedious or like mind numbing to get to that. I've worked with interns who are like, I didn't realize this job was like this. I thought red carpets and stuff. I was like, that stuff happens, but it's such a small fraction of what we do, and all the work that takes to getting an artist to that point or supporting an artist who's at that point is so much other like back end work, grinding at your computer in a million meetings before you even get there. And a lot of people like can't handle it. I know it sounds silly, but it's a thing where a lot of people are just like, I don't know if I could just sit at my laptop and be on the phone all day long, or be on email all day long, or just be running around nonstop. It's like, then this isn't the industry for you. You have to be able to do that, and you have to want to do it.
Yeah, I think it like, and also it's just like, if you're getting into this, I will just say, I'm not gonna put it out there fully. Like I work a paid job where I do what you were mentioning, where I'm on the phone, I'm on the email all day. And so it's just like, if you can even immerse yourself in that realm and then also doing this, it's like you have a little bit better of advantage to do that. But like you said, you have to want it. You have to love what you do. And I felt that so hard. I'm just like, say it louder for the people in the back.
Well, honestly, our magazine wouldn't exist if all of us didn't love what we were doing. Because
I know, because I email you guys when I'm working at like 2 a.m. and someone replies and I'm like, okay, so we're all dying. It's fine.
There are days I like sit down for an hour where I'm like, okay, I need to respond to all of these emails right now, because if I don't, like, we're gonna have an issue.
Same.
And it's like, I work on my lunch break because I have a different paid job too. So on my lunch break, I'm working on magazine stuff, and then after work,
lunch break. I just like eat lunch while working. I'll just go quickly grab something and then I'm back at the computer.
That is a mood. I think we all are guilty of doing that at one point. It's like, I don't have time.
Exactly.
I need to eat. No, but like people just
like,
don't
I'm the
realize.
queen of 5-minute meals, at least 5-minute prep meals.
It's just like, what is this? And like for what it's worth, Roxy's on the East Coast with you, I'm on the West Coast, so it's just like, if you don't hear anything from Roxy, guaranteed you're gonna hear at least I'm awake still. So it's just like, it's like, that's how we we have to cover for each other, and it's all about the teamwork that goes into what we do. And so
and it's hard. Let's say like I do this all the time and I really shouldn't, is let's say if on a good night, I'll end work around like 9 p.m. And then that's, again, my clients are just starting their workday, and they're normally pretty good about like not bothering me when I'm not supposed to be working, because they know what the working hours are. But then I'll look right before I go to bed, be like midnight, I see like 5 text messages coming. I'm like, okay, I'll just answer real fast and then I'll go to sleep. And then next thing I know, I've been at it for like 3 hours. And I was like, well,
I was supposed to
shouldn't have
sleep.
done that.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's, you have to know where to set boundaries. In some cases, it's like it just can't, because your client is doing something and it's really cool. And it's like everyone needs eyes on this. Everyone needs to be doing something. But in the places you can put that boundary, put it, because otherwise you're going to, and it's not just in K-pop, it's in any industry, is there's going to be people who are like, well, I know she ends at like 6, but she always answers up till midnight. And then it becomes an expectation. And then you're like, well, I don't work at this time. You're like, well, you've been working, you've been answering us up until 2 a.m. for the last 6 months. So how would we know you're not okay with it? You have to find the places where you should set the boundary.
Yeah. An out of office email reply is your best friend sometimes.
Dude, I just put do not disturb on Slack. I at one point had an employee that would bother me like into midnight, and I was like, I'm not gonna look at this anymore. Like, I'm not.
I mean, like, I respect the people who could like work better at night. Like, I'm a natural night owl, so like sometimes it is better for me, especially to grind away at an inbox that's like growing, because like I have my own inbox, and then we have the general inbox, which me and the entire publicity team handle. So like that way some people have some work-life balance, is like not everyone has to be watching it, but like some days that inbox is insane. It's like, okay, no one else is working right now, no one else will be answering these things, I just need to grind and get through all these emails and then pray no one responds while I'm doing this.
Yeah, that sometimes it's just like you get that email and you're like, Roxy's asleep. Okay, I'll answer it. And then I'll message her like, hey, I know you're asleep, but when you wake up in the morning, this is in the inbox, kind of situation.
You've also yelled at me for answering emails at like 10 p.m. You're like,
yeah,
why are you doing that?
I yell at my employees all the time if I see like that their little light, because it says green when you're active, I'll text them like, what are you doing here? What are you doing right now? And they'll be like, I just have to answer this one thing. I was like, it can wait till tomorrow. And like, it really can't. And then they explain like why I can't. And I'm like, I still feel like this could wait till tomorrow, but you're already gonna finish it and sign off. I better not see you back on. And then they'll be like, but you're on. And I'm like, that's a whole other thing. We're moving past it.
Like, don't look at that. Like it's definitely real, because it's just like, hey, and also it's just like, hey, I know we're sleepy, I know we're tired, hop off, because you're not producing your best work when you're like half asleep. So it's just like, we try to make it a thing. It's like off, like
power naps off are the best thing. I've taken power naps. Sometimes you just need to, where I'm like, if I've sent emails where you could totally tell I haven't slept in like 3 days when I wrote them, and I was like, this is not good for anybody. I'm going to take a power nap, and I'll just like put it in our group chat with all my employees, like, I'm taking a power nap, I'll be back in like half an hour.
Right, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah
Like, I totally feel that. And so kind of leads into the next question of like, since we're talking about the grind, the work, what is the advice? And I'm pretty sure you get a lot of questions about this, of like, what is advice of like you want to give to people, whether they're young, older, they're just getting into it, how to get into being in PR? Like, what would you do specifically towards K-pop, because it is an ever-growing field, more people are interested in it. So it's just like, what is some advice you'd give, to those who are wanting to pursue this type of career?
Well, first of all, it's very competitive now, because now everybody's realized there are jobs in K-pop, but the same goes for being in PR in general, but especially in K-pop, you have to know your stuff. You have to be more skilled than the person next to you. It's not enough just to be a fan of K-pop. We're everywhere. We've actually always been everywhere, but now we're loud about it. Where before, like I said, it was very hush hush, and like now we're loud about it. And as an older fan, I'm definitely guilty of this. I try really hard not to, but it's like, I've been here for 20 years. What do you know? And that's awful of me. And I shouldn't do that because like all of our fan experiences are valid. But the fact of the matter is you still have to know your stuff. Like, keep in mind, like the debut groups today grew up on the veteran groups. So it's more than like, I'm a fan of one group, I stan one group. You have to understand how K-pop works, even on a consumer level. And on top of that, your work skills have to be more than on par. They have to be the best. So like, first of all, figure out where in K-pop or the music industry you want to be in. That's going to be key. Because like I said, I did this the wrong way. So it took me a long time to get where it could have been a lot shorter if I had a more direct route. So the way you figure that out is like obviously in school, but do as many internships as you can. The tricky thing and the sad thing is, and I don't think it's just in K-pop, is when you put your resume and you show you did internships in a bunch of different places, some jobs like it, some jobs don't, but do as many as you can, because you have to figure out where you're going to be. And that hands-on experience is going to tell you want to be. I've had so many, interns and assistants who come through who they're like, you know what, I just realized I thought this is what I wanted, but it isn't, because stuff in college is not hands-on. There's no place in college really that they can put you in a perfect environment, especially in PR, where our methods change all the time. What the media wants change all the time. It's impossible to train it. You learn by like just being in it and learn how to be agile. But do as many internships as you want, like not as you want, but like as you can, I should say, to figure out what it is. And once you figure out what it is, do everything you can. Like, I've taken certificate courses. I've tried to network with as many people who are in the same field as me. Now, it's hard to network because all of us, especially in public, we're a little bit cagey because we deal with so many different people, and there's a lot of like territory wars and like PR, like that is the thing. But there are some of us, like I have people who DM me all the time, like, can you just tell me this? I'm totally fine with it. Message me on LinkedIn, DM me, tweet at me, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. Internships and networking opportunities. You can network. There's a bunch of K-pop events now, and don't discredit someone just because they're a fan and don't work in the industry. That fan is grinding to be in that career. So like, be friends with everybody. You don't know where they're going to end up. So like, those are my two keys of advice: is network as much as you can. But when you network, don't be obnoxious. Like, if someone is not answering you, don't send them like, hi, you didn't message me, I just want a minute of your time. If they're not giving you a minute of time, they don't want to give you a minute of their time. But there are people who will. So just be nice, be thoughtful, network, and internships.
Ooh, where were you when I needed it? Just kidding. And I think it applies to all fields, wherever you are. And I think that's just a really key advice. And I'm really glad that you said that, because it really matters of who you keep in your circle, and just, like,
try not to burn bridges also.
Oh,
that's a big one.
absolutely. And then again, like, I'm not against any fan who comes through and is like, I'm a fan of K-pop, I want to K-pop. Like, that's really great. In my opinion, and unfortunately it's not a big opinion, being a fan, you can't make someone more passionate than you can make a fan about something. But being a fan in a lot of places is a red flag, because they are thinking this person is just going to be like, oh my God, I'm so excited, which is a professional field. They don't like that at all. So being a fan is not enough. And some, depending on who you're talking to, which you have no way of knowing, that might scare them. I've worked in some PR agencies where they said, if it's a K-pop fan, just say no. As soon as they say K-pop fan, reject the resume. I've been in jobs like that. And for me, it's a prerequisite when I'm looking to hire someone here, because K-pop is such a large, wholly encompassing thing, even as a fan. And it's hard to teach someone who's totally out of it to get into it, because it's overwhelming. It's a really overwhelming, thing to get into. So for me, I want a K-pop fan, but at the same time, I have to be very mindful of when I have a K-pop fan, because there's certain things I have to worry about. Like, I've had interns who have met an artist and they could not stop acting like a fan, where I was like, oh my God, you're just so wonderful, you're so great, that when they're spending time with us, it's their private time, it's their training time, it's their prep time, it's their work time. They're not on in the artist way. So that makes them really uncomfortable. At the same time, is what people in the industry don't like working with fans is fans want that like 1% or that 2% I was talking about of like going to the concert, getting the music early. And if they don't get that particular thing, it's been a thing where those people slack off in their other duties because they only care about that 1 or 2% and everything else just kind of meh. And so they don't put as much effort into it. Now, of course, this isn't true for everything, but that's what works against you when you're a K-pop fan.
Yeah, I feel like some people are like idealize the idea of like being in media, and like say you meet a group, you're doing an interview. We just did one with Blitzers, and like the only thing I can think when we're doing that is like keep it cool. Like there are certain types of people you don't want in that environment because you don't want to make the artist uncomfortable. You don't want them to think like that you are freaking out, or you have to be professional. And I think that's the thing that some people don't really consider. And like sometimes being like overly like, oh my God, you're so amazing, you're perfect, like scares the artist. Like
it terrifies some of them. And
that's not something, it's not like flattering. It's like they're a normal person. If a person comes to you and is like, oh my God, I love you so much, you're so perfect, you'll be like, wait, hold on. What are you talking about?
There's just a time and the place. Cause like, I'm not gonna lie, there's some artists when I'm on the phone with where I'm just like, you guys are so great, you're so wonderful. But like, if I were to come and be like, oh my God, they're gonna like go like this a little bit. There are times where it makes sense. Like if they just did a great performance, then I can be super hype. And I'd be like, oh my God, you guys were fantastic. The dancing, how much training did you do this? There are times and places for it. And it's just, you have to realize they are a person. Would you want someone on a Zoom call at 2 a.m. hyperventilating at you and talking how great? No, you want to get your job done. And again, I get it. There's definitely people who I've met or artists I've met that I really respect and been fans for a long time where I needed a minute to collect myself. Or I just like, well, okay, well, I love this artist so much. I need a second, but I have to, center myself and act professional. And then I get off the call a coworker, whoever was with me, or a friend, and be like, oh my God, you'll never believe it, I just did. That's your moment to like freak out. But again, for me, it's a prerequisite to be a K-pop fan to work with me in K-pop. But at the same time, there are certain factors, because knowing what it is to be a K-pop fan, that I'm looking for. I'm like, can you handle this environment where the one thing you want is 1 to 2% of the job, and 2, when we get to that 1 to 2%, are you going to be able to handle it on a professional level?
Say it. I'm sorry. I was just like, oh yeah. It's just, totally have been there. There's been times where me and Roxy were just like, after it's done, like, are we good? Like check in with each other. Like,
you don't show it when you're talking to the artist, it's when you're done. Because I've done that where like I've flipped out. Like the second we got away from them, I just like fell over. So it was like, but as long as they don't see me do it, as long as I don't show that, because I don't want my brand to represent that. We don't want
exactly,
because then they're not going to work with you if they think that you are off the walls a little bit about it.
Exactly. Like I've worked with some even Korean agencies where they're like, how did you get into K-pop? And you say, I'm a K-pop fan, and you can see the utter panic that flashes over their face. And I was like, no, I promise it's fine. I'm not going to do this. And then I've been in cases where they don't want me to meet the artist because they know I'm a fan and they're afraid of how I'm going to act. Now, of course, some of that plays into the fact that I'm a female, and, we get a lot of that, like guys don't get this. There's guy K-pop fans too, but I've never seen it anyway where they get treated this way, but females especially do. So it's great if you were a K-pop fan. And I'm so glad that you're in this industry full of amazing, talented people, but you have to, just like in everything in life, pick a time and a place for how you're acting.
Yeah, definitely. Like super resonate with that. And yeah, I'm pretty sure like we can go on and on forever about like, hey, this happened.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
it's just like,
absolutely.
it's just like
I've been on calls or I've met clients where the second they've walked away or the second the Zoom call ended, I just went, oh my God, did that just happen? Is that real life? And like I'll scream and I'll call like a friend or I'll call a coworker who was on it who was also freaking out during, and like that's totally okay and that's totally valid, and that just means you're really excited about your work and really excited that you're working with someone you admire so much. So there's nothing wrong with that, even though a lot of people want to tell you there's something wrong with that.
Yeah. So like really insightful, all like really, really like good things to take away from, getting to speak with you. But we want to get to know you on a little bit more of a personal level. So we want to know, who's your favorite K-pop groups? Who do you want to work with?
Oh, this is awful. I hate this question.
I'm sorry. I have to ask.
I know. I get asked it all the time. Who's your favorite K-pop groups? The truth be told. So I mentioned before how I got into K-pop. So my first loves of K-pop are probably still my first loves today. So I love Jinsu and Jaejoong, who are former TVXQ, who are doing solo stuff now. I just love their music. I love their artistry. I love Monsta X. I love my group Omega X. It's really hard to be in K-pop and be a K-pop fan because like my clients encompass so much of my K-pop time. So when I'm unplugging, I'm not doing as much. So those are probably my I also love Ace. Let them come back very, very soon. I have like my K-pop playlist like can go for like a month long straight because I've just been in it for so long.
Same.
Honestly, like I recently found a second gen playlist on Spotify, and I'm like, bring back all the memories. I miss this era. So
I guess
no, go ahead.
Second gen is so good. So I always consider myself like 1.5 because like TVXQ, Super Junior and stuff, they're like a little bit outside to like second generation. I know there's a debate over if they're second generation or their first generation. I consider them like 1.5, and that music still hits so hard today. Like I know the choreography isn't as amazing as it is now because the choreography now is just insane. Like if you wonder like how everyone's knees and backs aren't broken, I promise you they are. I promise you that they are.
They start them young so that they can do it for like a year.
I promise you that they are. But there's something to also be said about just like the vocal color of like second gen groups that like I miss so much. I actually went through a bout of like K-pop depression, and like actually the group that brought me out of that was like Monsta X, like early Monsta X. I still love Monsta X. That they in my opinion, at least in the early part, they kind of had like that second gen like quality to it. Now like they've grown so much and have such an amazing career. In terms of working with people, I really want to, I mean, I'd love to work with my favorite artists, but I really want to work with like Sunmi, Chungha, like these powerhouse like female solo artists who are just killing it. I really love to work with Ailey. I'm really into like the female soloists right now. Also because like I know they get attention, but in my opinion, it is not enough. When I am pitching a group, it is so much easier for me to pitch a boy group. Like if I have a boy group, it is very easy. I'll get responses ready. But as soon as I get to the female soloists or even some of the girl groups, it is so much harder to get their attention, like get people's attention. And I don't quite understand why. I know there's a lot of differences in girl group and boy group music typically, and I get that, but at the same time I'm like, they're just as talented, they work just as hard, their vocals are just as amazing, and so I would really love to work with more female artists, but especially like female solo artists. Again, if I work with a girl group versus a female soloist, it is 10 times easier to get a girl group than it is a female soloist featured, unless you are a Sunmi or a Chungha. And the reason I want to work with those ladies, even though they definitely don't need my help, it's people at the top of the industry, which is going to make it easier for the people who aren't at the top. So it's going to take powerhouses like them in order to make room for others, or to like hold open the door, is what I like to say.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've definitely gone on this podcast and like, can we get more girl groups, female artists in 2022, please? And like, just really fun. I really hope, you know, you also are able to do that, just because, you know, we are in this industry together in some sort of way, and there's solidarity in it. And so it's just like, yeah, totally agree. More females, please.
Yeah, like I recently got to work with Huyen from Mamamoo for her solo activities, and such an inspiration just to listen to her talk about her music and understand everything that she's doing and going through. I respect her so much. I love Mamamoo in general, and it was just definitely a moment where I was like, oh my god, I get to work with her? Really? Are you kidding? But I want more artists in her vein, because I think that they could change this industry in a way we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, we've had fun. Anything else you'd like to add, Roxy, before we start wrapping up?
I don't think so. I think we had a lot of great points to talk about today. So
yeah. Well, we just want to say thank you so much, Brittany, for taking the time.
Pleasure. Taking the time. Fun.
Yes, definitely. You're more than welcome to always come back onto the Krazecast and join us. You know,
I would love that.
If you need a day to just be like, hey, I need a fangirl to something and, you know, not talk PR, you know, we do quarterly roundups and we're like, hey, we listen to this.
Oh, I might take you up on that offer, because like I definitely need that.
Yeah, like come down if you want to ever chat with us about what is going on, or you just want to like talk about other stuff aside from like the PR side. You know, you're always welcome here. We thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brittany, if you want to plug any of your social media, you could go ahead right now.
Well, I am Brittany Rambles, RAMBLES, on Twitter and Instagram. That's mainly where you'll find me.
And yeah, where can they keep up with? Where else can they find you? Where can they find Helix? You know, all of that.
Well, our Helix handles on all social media is just Helix Publicity. You'll find out all the amazing artists that we're working on those channels. I know you might get some people like, how do I apply to Helix? Everything's on our LinkedIn page, so keep an eye out on that. But yeah, if I'm not on my own social media, like you can check out like what I'm working on the Helix Publicity social channels.
Awesome. Thank you so much once again, Brittany.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you. Any last words, Roxy, as we wrap up?
Well, you can definitely see some content from Helix artists over on our website. We do cover as much as we can since we all want K-pop to be bigger and better.
Yes.
So you'll find all Helix artists as well as our other stuff on our website, Kraze Mag, and on all of our social handles are at Kraze Mag. You can find us there. And the Krazecast is available on all platforms. So please do give us a rating and review so we can keep doing great stuff. Anything else, Jay?
This has been the Krazecast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.